Welcome to From Age to Age, an oral history podcast series about the parish history and hopes for the future from the Church of St. Francis Xavier in New York City. The Oral History Project was conceived to preserve the unique history of this church by inviting our longtime parishioners to share their personal stories, illustrating why this parish is distinctive, unique, and a very special place.
Here I am,
My name's Kevin McCoy, and I am a parishioner at the Church of St. Francis Xavier with my wife, and we've been parishioners for about almost 15 years at this point. And I'm here today with Father Peter Fink, who is a former associate pastor of the Church of St. Francis Xavier, but has a long-standing relationship with both the parish and with Xavier High School. So, Father Peter, you had taught at Xavier High School going way back when you were early in your priesthood, and you've done all kinds of things since then. You ran a Jesuit retreat house in Atlanta. You've taught all kinds of theology up in Cambridge, Massachusetts. But for 10 years, you were an associate pastor here at the Church of St. Francis Xavier. What did you think when you got that assignment, and how did it work out?
It really wasn't an assignment. It was more an agreement because, I was up at the theology school, let's start with that, for 31 years. And coming to the end of that time, I had the sense of I was tired. I had the sense of the whole place was tired. They were moving over to Boston College, and I thought that was a good idea, but I didn't really want to do that. So in talking to the provincial, I had talked about other possibilities. And one possibility was parish work, and one possibility was Newman work, or that kind of thing. And when he mentioned Xavier, it was a great delight because, as I say, I spent 3 years here before I was ordained, and I spent another year here the year I was ordained when we moved to New York, teaching downstairs. The other parishes in New York I would not have been overly interested in, even though I went to a school uptown, shall we say.
Mm-hmm.
But that always seemed a bit more stodgy.
Mm-hmm.
And even when I was teaching here as a scholastic, when I was teaching physics and math, and we had contact with the parish, with the various things that the school did in the parish work. So that in itself was an opening awareness. I also I taught Father Joe Costantino back in the days before he was ordained up at the seminary, and I was delighted to come to work with him.
He was the pastor here then,
Well,
right?
he was coming the pastor as I was coming as associate
Mm-hmm.
pastor. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we came together.
Mm-hmm.
It was a delight on all levels. So,
Uh-huh.
I mean, it...
Well, Xavier, the church and its parishioners is known as a very active group of parishioners involved in all of everything that goes on, including, the liturgical preparations and everything. How did you work out bringing your strengths and integrating with all of that here?
Well, the kind of theology that I taught was sacramental theology.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was teaching the way the church worships and how the church worships, sort of a background which would come to answering your question.
Mm-hmm.
Right after, when I was in graduate studies, I was asked to give a talk at a parish on the liturgy. And someone said to me, I didn't know you knew anything about the liturgy. I thought your field was sacraments. And then somebody, when I came up to Weston, they said, I offered to teach some sacraments as well as what they call liturgy. And they said, why would you teach sacraments? We hired you to teach liturgy. And I spent 31 years trying to convince people that sacraments and liturgy are really the same thing. And so what I brought to the parish was that realization that sacraments are not something off in the sky somewhere. They are what we as a parish, as a people, do. One of my people who guided me, I guess, used to say that liturgy is not something that people do. Liturgy is a people doing something.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I brought to it was that whole sense of we are a people doing something, and what can I contribute to what people are doing? There was one sense, there was one of the sisters here always used to say that she always was fascinated how my homilies were becoming more and more pastoral, having started being very academic. And I said to her, you just listen to me too much. If you listen long enough, you'll find out that there's something pastoral in what I said. But yeah. So that's really what I brought to the thing. There was a group that was doing liturgical preparations of various kind, and I was happy to join them and slowly bring some different insights into it. As we went on, I was also able to do some constructive things, like when we were doing Advent, for example, to do a whole preparation rite, which would be different from the ordinary rite, or in Lent, a similar kind of thing. There were many ways in which I could bring not only the concept of people doing something, doing sacraments, but to be able to put it into prayer forms of worship.
During your 10 years here, you took the lead role in all of the baptisms and in the rite of Christian initiation in people who are joining the church from other religions or no religion. And you did that. And now there's dozens and dozens of people walking around who you touched and influenced in that way. And what did you think about that? Did you look at that as kind of a legacy?
I look on it as a very large collection of people who, in different ways, were seeking God and were seeking entrance into the church. And they all brought different insights and so on. Some of them were people that have stayed with me. Some of them were people who just came and have disappeared. But that and the similar kind of thing with doing marriages, a similar kind of thing. There was a lot of people that came into the world of Christian initiation for the RCIA and into the world of baby baptisms. We had tons of them too, and into the world of marriages. And to know that these are all people who have been part of my pastoral ministry, and I've been very happy with that.
Mm-hmm. One of the things about Xavier is that activism, though, among the parishioners. Had you ever experienced that before? Even at churches where you weren't serving.
When I was up in Massachusetts, I spent 25 years working with the Lebanese community in the Maronite Rite, and that's a whole different story. But the concern there obviously would be the concerns of the Middle East, the concerns of Lebanon, which is a very small place in the midst of many other Arab and Israeli realities. Okay, so it did not have the same activism that you found here. What I found here was a delight, because there was people in different ways trying to capture, or to more than capture, but to live the whole Ignatian journey. That's one of the things that any parish should ask the question: how are we? How is it a Jesuit parish? And it's a Jesuit parish where the language of the spiritual exercises is a dominant for the way we pray, the way we act, the way we do things. And, so, there was at least two different groups here that were involved in spiritual realities, whether it be spiritual direction part of things, or, people doing retreat. I mean, it was a very alive spiritual place.
Is it a highlight of your priesthood?
Well, no.
No.
I mean, a highlight. So when I was down in Georgia, when I was celebrating my 60th something or other, and somebody asked me, what were the main points of your life? And I just said, my life. I mean, there are different moods and movements, and they all had a certain delight to them, and a certain both the goodness and badness to it. I mean, there's always highs and lows in every life.
In your time away, and now you come back occasionally, has it changed at all here, do you think?
I know one of the things that, when I first got here, the gay community was probably the largest dominant crowd in the parish. And over the 10 years, more and more other people, married people with kids and that kind of thing, also became part of the reality, so that it became even a larger reality than just any particular focal point. Like I noticed, for example, when Luis Marina did the pageant mass, for example, at Christmas. Initially it was a very small crowd, but there was at one point standing room only. I mean, in other words, it became a larger parish. The vitality continues, even though many of the folks then have passed on to Jesus, and new folks have taken over.
Apart from the RCIA and the baptisms and everything, well, you mentioned the various groups, the LGBTQ community. Did you have a lot of involvement in the things that they were doing and have been doing since?
I'd be part of it
Yeah.
if they wanted to, whenever they were involved in something. I was, happy to be with them and to join them in the ventures.
Mhm.
I mean, we had all the great venture there on the question of the parish's banner in the Gay Pride Parade. That became a big to-do for a while. So that would be one group. Some of the other groups, I would be some of the sisters of various kinds. I'd go over to, there's a group of sisters over on the east side, right near the Romanian Catholic Church over there. They've moved out up. I don't even know whether they're still alive yet or not. They moved uptown, but so I'd go over to the various the Sisters of Charity downtown. So I've gone around to a lot of them, and the women's group. I still have a little group that came from the women that stayed. I was part of that too in some ways or other.
You stayed even though you weren't a woman.
I stayed even though I wasn't a woman. Yeah.
Is there anything that you're particularly pleased about during your 10 years here?
Well, I'm pleased about the way in which people were touched, whether it be things that I've said, things that I did, things that I was aware of, things that I was not aware of, but things that other people were benefited by my being here. If there's anything that makes me delighted about is that in a variety of different ways, sometimes people were complaining about something, sometimes people were not complaining. But in other words, there was just so much, but they made me feel part of the world here and allowed me to feel that something of my being here did something to help them and be of more than just help, be of a blessing, a common blessing, I would say. Yeah.
Is there any one thing you can share with us as an example of that?
Well, just one thing which comes to mind, whether this is involved in your question or not, but at one point I had to deal with my alcoholism. Okay, and one of the things I was very clear about, I was not going to sort of sneak away, be hidden away, and eventually come back.
Mm-hmm.
So I was, I was putting things in the bulletin each week, even though I was away, taking care of all of that. When I came back, I always use mustum, for example, at Mass, just for myself and anybody who wanted to use it. I obviously couldn't do it. But it was one of those things that it was something that this is who I am. I'm not ashamed of it or afraid of it. And I am delighted that people were benefited even by that.
People were appreciative that you shared this.
Yeah. But more than appreciative, because there are many people in the parish who are addicted in a variety of different ways, and it was an opening to them to be able to address that or to at least look at it in some shape or form, and to those who are already involved in it to be encouraged by one more alcoholic to help to be a guide with them.
For that particular episode, were you surprised by the reactions?
No,
No, you weren't. Mm-hmm.
no, I never felt surprised by anything surprised in the sense of wonder. I was surprised in the sense of when you're surprised about something, that can be a delight, which is different from shock. No, I was never shocked by anything here. There's nothing. The only thing that every once in a while there were some strange people that would come in and invade the place. Like there was one person who had, as I was presiding at midnight mass, came in and said, "Well, I came to expect the ancient mass, and I'm disappointed you're not giving us it." And I started laughing, and I said, "I missed the opportunity, but I should have looked at him and said, 'How's your Aramaic?' If you want the ancient mass, I'll be very happy to do the Maronite rite, and I'll chant to you in Aramaic if you want that." But odd invasions like that various moments in the church happen. But yeah.
How has, or it has, your time or in your relationship with the Church of St. Francis Xavier affected your life in any way and your spiritual journey?
Probably the best way to answer that, when I came down to give that talk on the Eucharist and I presided that day, I mentioned at the very beginning, I said that though I was born in the Bronx, I went to high school uptown, but Xavier has been my place at home. And that really is. I mean, when I come to New York, Xavier is the only place I would even consider going, because it's the only place that I really do feel at home, both in the community, which is a very good community, in the parish. I remember one time I had gone for a couple of years, I guess, but I was back here and I wanted to go in to see John Uline, and there was a group of dancing people and gathered around the table. So I was trying to sneak in the side, and it was locked, so I had to go up there, and they all applauded. And I said, "Isn't that lovely?" You know, that's probably something that I find very helpful for me, to be welcomed, and that was a great sign of welcome again. You know, just. Even when I come down to see Joe Costantino, he's over at St. Peter's, but I have no particular reason to be over there except for Joe himself. Joe and I became very close friends in the 7 years we were together here.
You had known each other before, though, too.
Well, I knew him in the sense that he was a former student of mine. I know, but when I first came down here and we reconnected, it was kind of the beginning of something different. Yeah, yeah.
That was the time when was the whole restoration of the church building was going on.
It hadn't even started yet.
Well, but it was coming. It was coming, though. And,
yeah.
And then so Joe was handling that, and you were handling everything else. How did that partnership work out?
Well, that worked out beautifully, because Joe's qualities were organizational in terms of putting things together. Somebody had said to me, "Why wasn't I involved in the parish?" I said, "I'm too cheap." And and I hate to say that, but in point of fact, Joe managed to put together things that were 1882 and 2010, and they matched, because he got it. Now I would never even imagine that. So I mean, he did what had to be done, and in the way it had to be done, and I basically I did practically all of the sacramental stuff. Obviously, we both did confessions, obviously, and I always used to say, I did everything else. He did all the funerals. He had that Brooklyn sense of the care for the sick. But we worked very well together. And I was sad to see him leave and to have another pastor come in. But the other pastor, we had a different relationship, but it was also kind of a healthy one.
Do you have a vivid memory at all about your time here? Not a road to Damascus memory necessarily, but just something that stays with you.
Some of the fun things we did, like when they were talking about this cabaret that they're having, we did one of those in those early days, and that particularly kind of was a delight. I mean, the ordinary ways of being a pastor at a parish are ordinary ways, and they don't kind of stand out in anything that really stands out and be under the seal of confession anyway. And I couldn't use that anyway. But no, but seriously, they have a deeper level of affect in me. I mean, it's not something that you kind of wonder about. I mean, it's just you're much more grateful about it. Much more grateful to be able to be a pastor for people who are in need. And that's however that unfolded in a variety of different ways. So when you ask that question, I think of more fun things like
Hmm.
I remember in the Easter pageant when one of the kids, two kids were in a thing which they were an animal and they were waving the tail in my face and those kind of little things that strike you. When we had picnics, parties downstairs and things like that, there was a way in which the delight of the parish would come forth in a new way, and that was something I enjoyed very, very much.
Did that sort of like interaction, personal interaction, did that enrich your academic, studies at all in some way?
Well, it does in the sense that, well, I mentioned the phrase before, sacraments are not something people do, they are people doing something. And when you begin to see a place where in so many different ways people are doing something, that certainly and not only confirms that initial insight, but it deepens it precisely because you see it happening. And what you see happening is actually a delight. It's a wonderful thing to see people just taking care of each other. I mean, like every other place, the parish has its concerns about, well, why don't you do it the way we do it, kind of thing. But there was also something about the parish that was struggling to allow each person to do what they needed to do. Like some people wanted to kneel, they knelt. Some people wanted to stand, they stand. One woman had to lie on the floor because of her back. In other words, there was a way in which people became a living parish precisely by living and without, every once in a while complaining about each other, but that's okay. That all passed, but the vibrancy of the place was the most important thing.
Hmm.
But I used to say, and I still say, that the Vatican II challenged the way we did things, but challenged the way we thought about things. And though they've changed the way we do things, and not too many people have caught really what Vatican II was promising in terms of the depth of it all. So that there is a way in which, well, you can even see it here just a little that I saw it, people kneeling and standing. That's just not a bodily thing. There's something in the mind. Two different spiritual journeys are going on there. And that needs to be at least explored, if not.
Explored by the parish, explored by
Oh,
how?
yeah, it should be explored by the parish,
Yeah.
yeah. I noticed that Jim Iraqi was saying that they had some mass, they're doing a mass, sort of a contemplative kind of mass for a group of people. What that does is it brings the depth into what you're doing and not just simply doing it. Because it'd be too easy just to say your prayers, bum, 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 bum,
Hmm.
bum. So somehow or other to be able to raise the issue of that the presence of Christ in our parish life doesn't happen on occasion. It happens when we are who we are. Probably less so here than in a lot of parishes. I think a lot of parishes you go into, they are just doing. I was looking at something on Collegeville books that one of them said, "Will Pope Francis pull it off?" And he's trying to do something, and whether he succeeds or not will be a good. He probably cannot just by himself, but of course he has said that the Vatican II has not yet really caught on to with the way they live.
If you had to put it in a few words to, the parishioners of St. Francis Xavier and people who are thinking about becoming a parishioners of St. Francis Xavier is like looking toward the future in their spiritual journey, what advice would you give them?
Let's say if a group of people came into the parish, say a married family raising kids, I would probably want to explore more deeply how their marriage can be deepened as well as simply helped by their journey in the parish. When some of the sisters, because so many of the sisters that come here, the religious women religious, are communities that are dying, and to explore not only their journey into the sadness of coming to an end, but how to be a witness to something wonderful in that journey. In other words, that we do believe that death is not the end of things. So they're in a dying situation. How could they not only deepen themselves, but be a witness to others? If people are involved in children being baptized, I probably, I look back and I'd probably say I was probably an okay baptizer, because I think that there's much more commitment that the people bringing children to baptism are involved in, if they are even aware of it, and to try and deepen that a little bit more deep. Same thing with the marriages. I think that too much of it was still done functionally, more functionally than spiritually. And I think I probably would want to see a deeper spiritual movement in each case. So it would be hard to say generically. I think people coming into the parish, I would hope that they would, A, be honest, and B, be respectful, and C, learn, as we all have to learn, how to be sister and brother in God's family. That simply. Yeah.
Thank you for those words of advice and wisdom. Thank you for sharing it with us.
Well, thank you.
Here I am, Lord, I come to do your
The music you are hearing is provided by the Xavier Music Ministry. From Age to Age is produced by St. Francis Xavier Church in New York City. This episode was recorded and edited by Cynthia Bastidas for Semillita Productions. A special thanks to the staff of St. Francis Xavier, Xavier High School, and Father Kenneth Bowler. Join us on our next episode. To learn more about St. Francis Xavier, visit sfxavier.org and look for us on social media. All copyrighted music reproduced with the permission of one licensed copyright, A-7000530, rights reserved. Music reprint license number 944. From downtown Manhattan, we wish you a blessed morning, day, or night.